Hey everybody, welcome back to JT Channel. Welcome to a very special video. No, I don't mean the background. You're used to the couch, you're used to the corner chair, which has now been moved. You're used to this setup, but as you'll see in the title, today we're going to talk a little bit about my experience as I briefly trained to be a pro wrestler for about 7 months. I'm going to kind of walk you through what I went through and what happened, how I found it, how it went, why I left, and is there any wrestling future for yours truly? Small side here. For those of you who don't know, if you're like new to the channel or, if you're not paying attention, if you're just watching like my gaming videos, I'm a massive pro wrestling fan. I've been watching it since basically I was born. There's a little debate on too if I watched it at the hospital or shortly after I got home from the hospital as literally an infant. When I was like 2 or 3 years old, every time the Undertaker's gong would go off, I just at the TV, according to my mother. So I'm watching wrestling my entire life, all the way through like the Monday Night Wars to the crappy period where there was no competition, even Impact Wrestling / TNA, to 2017. After I moved to Tennessee, in late December, it was like December 17th, I think, of 2016. And in 2017, I started to expand to the wider wrestling world. Now I watch all wrestling whenever I can. Wrestling's almost everything to me that isn't this little girl over here or my wife or the rest of my family. It's the one thing, wrestling and music, are the two things that have never let me down. Even when WWE was really bad in like 09 and 19 and a little bit in the 2010s, but not too bad. And of course, since 2018, basically, wrestling has really blown up into a million other markets. As far as like companies are blowing up, WWE's like the best it's been in ages. Of course, AEW, it's iffy sometimes. And then TNA is back. I watch MLW and New Japan and GCW and other local wrestling as well. I've got tons of local promotions here in Middle Tennessee. So basically, I always wanted to be a pro wrestler. Duh. When me and my brother were kids, we would wrestle at my dad's house when he wasn't home. Sorry if you see this, Dad. Remember that shit, Austin? We would hit each other with my dad's actual cookie sheets, and we would have to get the bends out. And according to my brother, my dad still has those. So again, hey, Dad. Not that my dad watches these videos, but just in case. And then me and my friends would wrestle too on like trampolines and stuff. And I mean, we'd go all out. I got hit with weapons all the time. I was the guy that liked taking punishment and would kick out at 2 no matter how much you got him. Except for that time my buddy George made me say I quit because he had me in a submission. We were in a 6-man elimination match, every man for himself, and I got 2 into it and spat in his face, knocked me over, put me in a crossface where my arms were trapped, and I had to say I quit. He will never ever let that down. I've jumped off of roofs, I've jumped off of ladders. I've had my brother, I went to do a move to my brother in our very last match we had in an abandoned house. I went to DDT him through this like couple pieces of wood, and there was a nail in one of them stuck in my back. I've taken choke slams on shitty thumbtacks. It's been, like I said, I always wanted to do this, but of course I had no professional training. In September of 2019, I'd look up the messages on my phone. In 2019, I had gone to a bunch of local shows. I had convinced my wife at the time, my now ex-wife, to let us go. And it was fun. We had a good time. And then one of the guys, Adam, said he wanted to start a training program, basically. And this guy named Toby Farley, who, if you don't know, I suggest Googling him. I suggest looking him up on social media, YouTube, stuff like that. He's an incredible local pro wrestler, and he's not just local either. He's everywhere. He was going to be a part of it. And like I said, he had like a lot of years under his belt, even in 2019. But basically, we couldn't work it out really because my ex-wife was concerned about me. I was working third shift, and the classes were going to be in the morning on weekends, and I worked weekends. I worked like Thursday through Monday, third shift, so I would be getting off of work, getting really very little rest to go train, and then who knows how much time I would have had to sleep before I had to go back to work. But in January, I was like, I want to do this, so I messaged him again. Unfortunately, it never took off, so it never happened. It was pretty much dead on arrival, and the company itself had moved to a different town, which was much further away. So I just kind of went... So we fast forward a little bit. In 2022, I, of course, am remarried. And I always looked at nearby schools every like 5 6 months, maybe all the way up to 8 months, I would just be like, wrestling school's near me. And there is one in Knox County in Knoxville, not Knoxville, maybe not, I don't know. But there is one ran by Glenn Jacobs and another like legend whose name I can't remember. But that company or that training facility was really expensive, $500, $600, $700 or something a month or down, or I don't remember. I just know I couldn't afford it. So for the most part, I just kind of gave up. I was like, maybe someday I'll find something, or maybe I'll go to school because I love doing commentary. If you're ever seen the MAW videos, I just love doing commentary. So I just kind of like let it lay. And then in like March or April of 22, I looked it up and happened to find FXE, that little shirt reveal. They were not too far away, and they were fairly new, but they also weren't new. I'll explain. But I emailed this guy named Kalen, who had the same, my wife's name is Kalen, but of course spelled differently. Kalen, the guy, and I emailed back and forth, and he's like, why don't you come talk to us? We'll meet, we'll talk, we'll see what we can get done. So I went out there and I met him, and I met AJ Gallant, who was at the time the lead coach. Now, apparently AJ was part of Shawn Michaels' very first pro wrestling class. Bryan Danielson was also in that class, just to give you an idea. I think there were others, but I'm not going to sit here and try to run through them all. I think Brian Kendrick might have been too. So AJ Gallant trained with fucking Bryan Danielson. So he has that. He trained at the WCW Power Plant, but he mostly wrestled like on the indies and stuff. I don't really know. I think his name was Venom, maybe. Sorry, AJ, if you see this video. My brain's farting over here. I'm also, you hear the noise in the background. So I met him. He was really cool. I talked about my passion. He said he could see it in my eyes. He said, I can see that you really want to do this. So we shook hands. I paid like the initial fee. And then on June 1st, Wednesday, June 1st, 2022, I went to my very first wrestling class. My very first wrestling class was very chill. I think I mostly learned like chain wrestling a little bit because at this point, FXE had only been around since like January, maybe early February of 22. I explained that it wasn't necessarily new. Apparently, this AJ had this same school down in Florida, but unfortunately was taken down by a hurricane. I think that was in 2019. That's what he said. But either way, he rebuilt it for Tennessee, and here they are. So I always remember my second day. On my second day, I took 6 scoop slams, 6 pick up and slam, because I apparently did it really well, which was cool to hear. I mean, I wasn't slamming anybody, but I kept being picked up to take slams. And I was like, this is weird. I'm good at taking power slams, but it was more getting into the position, which I won't spoil anything. No secrets. Shh. But it was every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And at first I went every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I never missed a class. I was like one of the few, there was like 3 or 4 of us that were in every single class, no matter what. And I learned tons. And as far as who I learned from, oh boy, do I have some names. I learned from, of course, AJ. But then there was Tom Latimer, who wrestled in TNA as Brahm, and who is currently just Tom Latimer on NWA. Jacob Gill, who is Magic Jake Dumas, also in NWA. This explains the hashtags. Because I'm going to have all the wrestling hashtags in my in the description. I trained with Kaylee, I guess Latimer. I can't remember what her name was beforehand, but Camille is who she's known as. Former NWA Women's Champion. I think the longest reigning NWA Women's Champion of all time. And I believe she's recently been signed by WWE. So good on you, coach. Of course, she's Kaylee Latimer. She's married to Tom, if you couldn't tell. And I've, of course, buried the lead because I also learned from Jerry motherfucking Lynn. If you don't know who Jerry Lynn is, I'm sorry. If you do, no, I'm kidding. I'm not going to brag, but it was cool. I learned from Jerry Lynn for a while. Honestly, if you don't know who he is, I'll just tell you he's a legend. He's been wrestling for super, super long. He was one of the guys that was doing that hybrid style and doing all the high flying and stuff with Rob Van Dam and Sabu and all of them. Rob Van Dam and Jerry Lynn have had some absolute bangers in their careers together. Jerry Lynn, of course, works for All Elite Wrestling right now, so he wasn't around all the time, but if he could be, he was. But either way, I was training with actual professional wrestlers. Tom, Jacob, and Kaylee all currently wrestle. AJ used to, and he had crazy training in his background. And then, of course, Jerry Lynn would come every now and then. So I learned how to do lots of stuff. I learned how to do back breakers, arm bars, arm drags, hip tosses. I learned how to run the ropes properly. Bump properly is what it's called. I learned how to do suplexes. I tried to do this like cool combination where I'd like jump off the top rope or whatever. One time, me and a couple of guys had a fun little tag match, and I actually had to sell a leg injury and sold it and climbed to the second rope and dove out of the ring onto somebody. Like I was just having the time of my life. But eventually, of course, my wife was pregnant with Brooklyn at the time I started. So once September, October, maybe even August came around. So basically things were getting harder at home. So I started to miss classes. I'd go like twice a week, once a week. And then every now and then I'd go for all three. And then of course on October 8th of 2022, this happened. This right here. Brooklyn was born. And of course I took like 2 weeks off of I took like 12 days off of my job because they were begging me to come back. So I couldn't take a whole 14 or 15. And then I took about 9 or so days off of wrestling. I wanted to go back to wrestling first and then work. So I did. And then in October, November, and December, I was very scattered. I'm not necessarily proud of it, but at the same time, I was staying home to take care of my wife or my daughter. So like they understood, but I missed enough class to where it became, don't tell us when you're not coming, tell us when you are coming because you're missing so much. And I'm like, okay, that's fair. Because I'd miss like 2 straight weeks, come back on a Wednesday and be like, fist bump, what's up? Yeah, I ain't leaving. And then I wouldn't be back for another 2 weeks. So it was rough at the end of 2023. And then, of course, we had New Year's, Christmas. We had like 2 weeks off anyway. I think I went to one class shortly before that break. And then in January, around January 5th, 6th, 7th, 3rd, I don't know. It was more, anyway, it was like the first class of the year. I went to that and I was like, I'm back. All right. First class of the year. And, by the time I had come back, it might not have been the first, but it was a January class. Okay. And by the time I had returned, they had changed to a rookie and advanced, or beginner, I should say beginner and advanced classes. They had 2 advanced classes, 2 beginners classes. And then they had a class, I think on Wednesdays that was for promos. That was everybody would come in for promo class. So I went to a beginner's class because I had missed 6 weeks at this point. So yeah, I didn't actually, so I'd been gone for a while, 4 or 6 weeks. So I wasn't at a class shortly before the break as I thought I was. Now I'm remembering. So yeah, I can remember. So I came back and this guy named Phil Dixon, actually, if he sees this video, which again, I don't know if he will or not, he asked me what I was doing at a beginner's class. And I was like, well, I've missed weeks. I want to make sure I haven't missed anything. And he's like, yeah, you probably need to take a few beginner's classes, knock off the ring rust, and then you should go to advanced classes. And that meant the world to me because Phil had trained to be a wrestler before, had to give it up, and then came back to the point, but like he was already basically a coach in January of 23. But I think now in 2024, I think he is a coach at FXE. So it was crazy to hear him say that. And then unfortunately, I never went back. That was, the one class. I had friends that were excited to see me. They were really hoping I'd be back. And I told AJ, I'm like, it may not be, I think every other Thursday, me and my wife went shopping at the time. So I was like, every other Thursday I won't be here. And he's like, that's fine. Just be here, just happy to have you back. And then I bailed on them forever. I was signed to an actual contract with FXE because they aren't just a training facility. They're also a wrestling company. I think they've had 2 shows now, or they're about to have their second or something like that. So I was actually contracted to a wrestling company for a year. But of course, in late May or June 1st, I don't know exactly when my contract was signed. It, just terminated. I was paying the school all the way up until May. I might have missed a few payments if I'm being completely honest. And then dead. But since then, it's been a year since I left and it's been 2 years since I started. Well, it's been a year and like 4 months, 5 months, whatever, since I stopped going to class, but it's only been a year since my contract ended. And I've, of course, been thinking about going back every time I thought I had the money. And I've been watching all these guys that I trained with go out there and kill it. Tavon Jordan, someone else you should, social media, Google, YouTube, whatever. Tavon Jordan is like won multiple titles, been involved in huge storylines, and he's just rising up the fucking ranks. Colby Carter, someone I trained with, had no wrestling experience when I started with him. He started in like January of 22. He just wrestled Jay Lethal recently. Jay Lethal. And he's been on AEW TV. Now, I was at that show. I was in the crowd, and they didn't do anything. He was about to wrestle the Acclaimed before the Acclaimed got jumped by, I think, the House of Black. But still, that's insane. Okay, I know him. I knew him before he was famous. God. Anyway, it started to pump me up. And that's why I want to make this video today. Because, like, I want to tell you guys my experiences, kind of walk you through what it was like, and then how I got to stop doing it. And now, you know, I think about it a lot. You know, FXE, every time I post about it, AJ's like, we're here waiting for you, bud. Like, FXE would take me back in a heartbeat, and I know it. Because I was doing good. I'm not bragging. I was doing good. I was learning quick. If I did something wrong, I got on it. I had a little trouble with standing headlocks and arm drags and hip tosses. Those, I had a hard time like doing those right. But everything else I was doing fine on. And I know, I feel it right here, right in the middle of the X in the FXE here, right in my heart, that I would be out there making money doing this if I had kept up with it. Now, money happens, life happens. I'm not going to sit here and boo-hoo my way through all this, but you know, it was tough letting it go, and it's been tough. It's been a tough year not going back, but I will say that to everybody watching, if you're part of FXE, if you're trained to be a pro wrestler, if you're a pro wrestling fan, whatever, I'm going to come back eventually. Me and my wife have talked about it so many times. We just got to be in the right place. There's even another wrestling school called Dynamite School of Wrestling. Excuse me, I think. It's called Dynamite. I know that much. That I've spoken to, and they're open to having me come in. Their classes are, as of this recording, their classes are only once a week for 3 hours, and I think it's on Sundays. And I'm not trying to give away schedules because some of y'all probably ain't from Tennessee or even the country, potentially. So it'd be like really interesting to go from like FXE, who have classes basically every day throughout the week, to Dynamite, who seem to have one really long class a week. And it's also earlier in the day from what I remember. So like, it's interesting because like FXE was like 7 p.m. to 9:30 p.m.-ish, depending on what we were doing. Sometimes, I'd say give or take 15 minutes. Sometimes we'd be done at 9:10, 9:15. Sometimes we'd push to 9:45, 10 o'clock, depending on what we were doing. And I think the other one is like 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. So, and it's much further away, but that's okay. Yeah, I'd be willing to do it. The point is, my daughter just gave me this shirt. The point is that it's been 2 years since I signed that contract, and the 7 months that I trained, were some of the like most exciting months of my life. They gave me the chance to work StarCast, which if you know what StarCast is, you know how huge that is. If you don't know what StarCast is, it's basically Pro Wrestling Comic-Con. Basically a bunch of like legends and wrestlers and whatnot sign autographs, and there's wrestling events around it, whatever. In 2022, SummerSlam was here in Nashville, in Tennessee, and I got tickets to SummerSlam. Took my best friend at the time there, but I also was allowed to volunteer for StarCast, and it was really cool. I got to work on Saturday. I got to work with Tori Wilson, one of my favorite wrestlers of all time, and I got to talk to her, talk shop. I got pictures with her. She gave me one of her little photos you have to pay for. And then on Sunday, I got to work Ric Flair's table and Jerry Lawler's table and Mick Foley's table. And I got to be security at Ric Flair's last match. So, you know, FXE opened up a lot of doors for me. And it sucks that I had to give it up. And, you know, this video, as I mentioned a little while ago, I just wanted to share my experiences on the just after 2-year anniversary of me first starting. Like I said, I started on June 1st of 2022. She's got a lot to say about this. So I guess in conclusion, I'll just say, if you have a chance to chase your dream, go for it. If it doesn't work out, you can always change your dream. You can always go after your second dream. Or, like me, you can sit back and let your life happen and then go back someday. I'm 33 years old. My dad, who I mentioned earlier briefly, he told me I can't do it. Like, he straight up said I can't. In one ear and right out the other, as he liked to say. Someday I'm going to go back, whether it's FXE, Dynamite, somewhere else, doesn't matter. Follow your dreams and always enjoy yourself. As always, don't, like, share, subscribe. Let me know down in the comments, what do you think about this? Have you ever chased your dream? If you're a pro wrestling trainee and you happen to see this, don't give up. Doesn't matter how far away it is. Doesn't matter, what you have to miss out on. Do it. It's worth it. Okay. A lot of my friends from that company are out there kicking ass, taking names, winning belts. Like I said, Colby Carter has been on AEW television and has wrestled Jay Lethal. That's insane. Oh, and QT Marshall, however you want to say his name. So it's, it's wild. Go for it. Like Shia LaBeouf said, just do it. All right. That's it for me. This is JT Channel. I am JT, and we'll see you next time.